The chin definitely got checked this episode, for sure. But if you're new here, hit subscribe, do that real quick. Thumbs up the video, hype the video as well if you don't know what that is. Get in the comments on the YouTube app, leave a comment, and then go hype the video. Help me out, help me out. And like I said, subscribe if you're new. I'm going to be here all season. This was a good episode. We got a lot going on, so we're definitely going to get into it, and I'm not going to waste any time. Let's go. All right, so we pick back up where we left off, which is Athena. She's at home. Athena? Who the hell is Athena? Angel. Angel's at home with her family, and Ashley, she's working out. But we see Stacey. She's out with Arabella, who looks like she's practicing pageant work. She talks to us about pretty much her and her husband, ex-husband, husband, whichever one he is. They haven't told Arabella yet about them getting back together, but she feels like she already knows, but they're not going to pretty much talk to her about it in this moment, and they don't feel like it's the right time. But she FaceTimes him showing her practicing or whatever. But we then see Wendy out to meet Kei. The energy is very dry between both of them. As soon as they meet, because Kei's already sitting there on the bench, and Wendy sits down, and they sit down, and Kei's like, I mean, I felt like it's better to have a conversation outside of like a group environment so that we can just have this one-on-one so we can discuss our issues, which it's only one issue, which is on your end. But Kei tells us that Wendy wants to have a TV friendship, and off camera, it felt phony. And she then says that her behavior is consistent with somebody who has never really liked her. Now, before we get into all of this, when it comes to Wendy, I feel like Kei definitely has some valid points. She just does not know how to vocalize that. It's like she gets lost in the story, and it's like she starts trying to pull out excuses and examples that don't really coincide with what her actual point is. But she ends up asking about Preakness, and is Wendy going to Preakness or whatever? And Wendy's like, yeah, I'm doing it. And Kei was like, I mean, I was planning on hosting an event. And she asked, like, should we do it together, or do you plan on just doing two separate events? Wendy says, I mean, I already did the legwork with the first lady. She already reached out to me. And this is that shit that Wendy be doing, pretty much making it seem like, okay, well, this already happened. Like, she already reached out to me. I'm a priority at this point. But Kei was like, okay, that's fine. You can host. That's your thing. But Wendy then says to us that she just don't understand what the issue is. And Kei was like, no, she said it to Kei. She was like, I don't understand what the issue is. And Kei was like, there isn't one. There is an issue. You're the one with the issue. But Wendy then talks about being excited about hosting the event in her confessionals. And she was like, let's be clear. The first lady of Maryland asked me. I'm like, you think she's going to ask you again, considering everything that's going on? But Kei says, like, in her confessionals, like, okay. But Kei then brings up Wendy being condescending at the Bloom Ball. So Wendy then says, so what you brought to me at that event, it was juvenile. I don't understand it. I really don't feel like it's that big of a deal. That's pretty much the energy that Wendy was giving. Kei says false. Like, that's not what it is. Wendy says, I mean, I'm telling you how I feel. I want you to know that I saw red flags in you as a friend. I was trying to navigate it because I'm trying to get to know you better. Kei says same. Wendy then says, for me, I realized that you don't call me. Like, you talking about I'm not a good friend. You don't call me. She said the person that's always had your back, which is me, on my birthday last year. Y'all remember when they were in Lake Norman? If y'all don't know, I'm from Charlotte, so I know exactly where they were. They were in Lake Norman, and when Ashley had pretty much brought up the fact that Kei gets her money from drug dealers, she was the first one to go check up on Kei, which I found funny that this was the conversation when we know what's going on with Wendy. But Kei then says, I mean, you were there, but you show up when you have to look like a friend, aka you only do it when you're on camera. But privately, I expected more. So basically what I feel Kei is trying to state is, you're only a camera friend. Like, you're an on TV type of friend, but when we're not filming, you're not present in my life. So to me, I think Kei isn't, you got to realize the person that you're dealing with. I feel like she now realizes that Wendy is definitely a friend for TV, or she's really a coworker. That's really what it is. Because when you look at Wendy and you look at Candace, when they were on the show together, you would think that Wendy and Candace would be like this off the show too. And they're not. They're not. And it's not because of Candace, it's Wendy. It seems like Wendy is the one that's not present in Candace's life, which I feel like is also transferring over into this one. But Kei was expecting more from Wendy. But they both state that they roll for each other blindly, essentially. And Kei was like, I mean, I feel like if we can't connect on that, I don't like it. It makes me uncomfortable because I don't feel like I can be my authentic self with somebody who I thought was my friend. And she was like, to watch you be so flippant about how I was at that event. Like basically when she was talking about how when she walked up to Wendy when she was talking to Gizelle at Ashley's event, she was kind of like brushing her off like she wasn't even sitting there. And she was like, you were so locked in on that conversation with Gizelle when you don't even like her. And Wendy was like, I mean, you don't like her either. But Wendy says the conversation was between me and Gizelle. Like it was Gizelle's conversation that she was having with me and I was having a conversation with her, which in Wendy's defense, I do understand that. Like we're having a conversation at this point. Yeah, Wendy could have just threw up her hand and been like, hey, I see you sitting here and continue the conversation. But at the end of the day, Kay wanted Wendy to stop talking to Gizelle to address her. When I feel like that's rude. Because if I'm having a conversation with somebody, let me finish that conversation before you get the attention that you so desperately want, which is that's what Kay wanted. But they both talk about how, like I said, each other not liking Gizelle. But Wendy then says that was our conversation. I no longer know what the issue is, honestly, because like where are we going with this? But Kay then says that Wendy, the Wendy that I talked to on the phone, is excited about me, but that's centered around the show, which aligns with what I'm thinking is that she really is only a friend when it comes to the show. Wendy starts laughing in her face. I said, because I see both sides. Wendy laughing in her face because it does seem like it's stupid at this point because Kay's issue, it definitely seems like it's a storyline. That's what it seems like. But I also can see Kay's perspective as like, I thought you were my friend when you're not really my friend. And then for you to be sitting here laughing in my face is proof of the fact that you don't take me seriously. Which, I mean, I see both sides. Y'all tell me whose side y'all are on, but I see both sides, honestly. But Wendy tells us she don't know what to do with it. Like, I don't know what to do with this. She said it seems like like Kay needs somebody to hold her hand in a type of friendship, and I'm not that as a grown woman. But Kay then tells Wendy to stop all that laughing, and Wendy keeps on laughing, like forcing to laugh at this point. So, like, it's a laugh, but you could tell she's doing it just to piss her off. And she is very successful with it. But Kay says the fake laughing shows exactly what she's talking about with the funny behavior. But Kay says, I'm done with you and your bullshit. You're full of shit. She flicks her off and Wendy's sitting there laughing, flicking her back off. But they then go walk off because Kay was walking off. Wendy comes up behind her trying to fake hug her as she's sitting there laughing. I'm like, Wendy, you ain't shit. But Kay got the last laugh at the end of the day if you want to keep it real. But we see Angel. She's at home with her husband. Her husband's making breakfast. Her dad is there. They start talking about her mom. We found out that her mom had passed 10 years ago. Sorry to hear that. But her and her dad, they're talking about her mom. But she then says that she believes that her mom's spirit is there protecting her, which I always believe that. I feel like when somebody passes over, their spirit is definitely living on. But she then talks about how the girl's coming over for her little event that she had in the last episode, and she can't stop thinking about it. Her husband asks, like, what's up? And she brings up Gizelle bringing up Kay, talking about chin checking her, which is funny because in the moment, it wasn't no chin check, but later on, it definitely was a chin check. She got chin checked a couple times, so we'll get to it. But Angel then says she woke up upset because it didn't happen. Like, I didn't get chin checked. And I'm surprised that Kay would even use that language when it comes to me as her friend. Her husband's like, yeah, that chin check is like, the way I see it, I see how people say chin check like that, but I use chin check like if I really checked you, that's what I would use chin check as sometimes, which is why I can see why Kay would say that. But then again, I also see how she's feeling about this word. But Angel then says that she needs to have a conversation with Kay and asks pretty much like why she felt like she needed to use that word, especially when she has her back no matter what. It's not a big issue, but I felt disrespected by it, which she later states is not. She said it's not a big issue, but then she later states that it is an issue, but then she acts like it's not. We'll get to it. We then see Stacey out with Jassy. Stacey is hilarious. Like I told y'all the first episode, she is hilarious to me. She's one of my favorites because she is hilarious. Like she's unserious, but she had an episode today. She's out to lunch with Jazzy, who I think Jazzy really should. I feel like Jazzy should have gotten Kay's flute, if you want to ask me. But they start talking about how it's been long overdue for them to link up. They talk about Mia ditching them for the birthday in Miami and how that just ended up being the best thing for them because they actually had a good night. But Stacey then starts apologizing, stating that she doesn't feel like she's really been a good friend to Jazzy and she prides herself on her friendship, so that's why she's apologizing. But she tells her what she got going on. Like, she's like, I had a lot of shit going on. So Jazzy then asks, like, what's up with you and your ex-husband? And Stacey's like, yeah, we working it out right now. I'm happy. Stacey then asks Jazzy about her wedding plans. She's got it going. She got a bunch of dresses. She's there to entertain her guests. But they then start talking about Preakness. And Stacey's like, I'm going. I feel like we need to link up with the girls. So Stacey then talks about Kay having this pre-party at her house before the Preakness, and she sent the women a text, but then she also knows that Wendy also mentioned Preakness as well. So Stacey and Jazzy, they order their meal. Stacey then catches Jazzy up on how hard it's been for her in these group settings because every single time it feels like a gang up on her. Everybody's literally on her, at her neck. Ashley and Gizelle demanding her to present divorce papers to prove that her and her ex-husband were actually divorced. And Jazzy's like, I mean, my grandparents got divorced and they still ended up having a 60-year marriage. Like, they continued their marriage. And Stacey was like, didn't Gizelle get back with her husband? Yeah. Jazzy was like, yeah. And Stacey said, speaking of her, word on the street, y'all know that's Gizelle's, that's her term that she's used since season 1 in them intros. Word on the street. I said, go ahead, Stacey. She pulls out her phone. And she pulls out this phone, and it's a picture of Gizelle with this man. She out to dinner or out somewhere on a date with this man. And Jazzy's like, how did you pull this? Stacey says, I mean, I know people around the neighborhood. So Stacey says it's beyond me how Gizelle is calling me phony and calling me fake when she the one out here faking it all along. Like, she the one out here having secret, like, basically she's like, if y'all are worried about me and my relationships and all the stuff that I'm not being forthcoming with y'all about, y'all need to be standing on that too. And she's like, why are the standards different when it comes to me? She got a valid point. But they then talk about how it's Sean Springs, the retired NFL player. But Stacey says, while she's worried about my man, we need to start figuring out about hers. I said, get her, Stacey. Because it's valid. Y'all so fixated on what's going on in my love life and my relationship. Let me start getting in yours. And we all know Gizelle likes to keep hers hush hush. But Tia is funny too. She's funny too, and her kids are funny. She's at home with her oldest kids, and they arguing. The girls, they arguing about whose friends coming over and whatever. But her husband then joins them and asks, like, what's the issue? And it's like a light issue. It's not even an issue. It's like girls being girls. And they're like, there's no issue. And Tia's like, you making one right now. But Tia starts talking to us in her confessionals about the culture differences, like Nigerians to Americans. And she's stating like how American kids are being taught to pretty much advocate for themselves. And she was like, I mean, you just want them to have a voice, but not with you. And I'm like, yeah, I get what you're stating, because you don't want them to be too talking back, but you do want them to be able to vocalize how they feel. But her oldest one is spicy. Like, the 2 scenes that we've seen of her, she got a mouth on her. But Tia and her husband, they head out back. And Tia says, like, I feel like sometimes I don't feel like I have enough time with all of my commitments, like work, the kids, all of that shit. So she then talks about how her mom was essentially a stay-at-home mom, and it was important to her as well until she had gotten her kids in school, and that then gave her time to go back out and work. But Tia then says that she feels like Rob, talking about her husband, is now coming into play, pretty much like he's starting to factor into all of this. So she tells him that he's been very supportive, but one day she was gone all day, came back, and him and the kids was waiting on her to come home and fix dinner. Basically, like, I done been ripping and running all day, and I couldn't come home to a meal. That's basically what she's thinking. And in my mind, because he then says, like, I mean, I feel like you forget that I get up at 6:30 in the morning every day, and then I go to work too. So I'm like, on them days where y'all both are super busy, it seems like I got money, why don't y'all get a chef? Get a chef. Have the chef cook y'all's meals on them days where you know you both gonna be busy. But she then says, like, I feel like we can have the kids, like, one day, like 1 week, one day throughout the week, have a kid make a meal. But he then says, like, I mean, you say that, but you ain't really enforcing it. And then she then tells us that they execute parenting differently. She said he talks and they tune out what he says and nothing gets done. She's the type to go ape shit, but she sees the results. And I said, you know what? You're right. Because, and especially the way she gave this example, she says, like, you have to sometimes be marginally insane. And she then says, like, her mom, this was so funny to me. She says her mom would tell her to do the dishes, and if she didn't do it, she would take the dishes and put them on her bed. I said, that's crazy. But it's like, that's what it is, though, because my parents, when I sat and thought about it watching the episode, I'm like, yeah, she's right. Because if my parents would have just told me as a kid, do this, I probably wouldn't have done it until I felt like doing it. But if they say, Grant, if you don't do this right now, I'm going to take this from you, or you're going to have to do it, I would get up and do it. Sometimes you gotta do something. But he was like, in general, the kids need to hear expectations from both of us about respect and whatnot. She's like, yeah, I can't stand rude children. And he starts laughing, and I agree. But Gizelle and Tia, they're out shopping, and they're catching up. Angel joins them. They start talking about not seeing her since the event. And Tia then says like she was the only one in yoga pants. Gizelle says, yeah, it wasn't stylish. You want to talk. And Tia said it. Tia was like, you telling me about style? I died laughing. Tia is so funny. But the producers are messy because they put just a graphic of just all these pictures of Gizelle's outfits. But Gizelle then mentions how Tia was emailing her years ago. And Tia tells us, like, when I first moved here, there was a lot of talk about Gizelle's awful style. And she says she DM'd Gizelle just for shits and giggles, telling her I could help you out. But Tia then says that Gizelle didn't even read it. But Wendy arrives and they start talking about how they haven't really been having fun as a group. Yeah, because y'all been on Stacey's head. But Angel, what am I writing? Angel said that my event wasn't, she was confused, like my event wasn't fun. They was like, no, it was not. Gizelle says, let me be Captain Saberho at this point. We go into the Caribbean. So she pretty much lets them know about their first trip for the season. They're going to the 4 seasons. I said, okay, good for y'all. But Gizelle then talks about how like the New Orleans trip that she had planned in 2018 was one of the best trips that they had. She had hosted and she was like, I mean, y'all never let me host again. And somebody else is in jail, talking about Karen. And there's nobody else left to do it, so let me do it. So Angel then talks about how this is the first time that she's really been away from her kids. And Gizelle starts talking about how Angel and Wendy had went to college and was like, have y'all not partied together? They're like, no. And you can tell Wendy got that energy where it's like, and that's how it was given. I'm like, what's really going on? But they butted heads later on. But Wendy then is now looking at clothes. Talking about who shops in here, grandma's. I need to buy my mom something. I said, Wendy, don't buy nothing. Don't buy nothing with that money that you got. But Wendy and Angel, they then start talking about Wendy and Kay's talk. And then Gizelle and Tia, they end up joining them too. But Wendy was like, it went okay. Like the conversation went okay. I said, okay. But she then says that she had stated where she was coming from and how she didn't understand where Kay was coming from because the example that she pretty much gave didn't really exemplify a betrayal. So Tia and Gizelle, they mentioned the makeup comment that Wendy had made to Kay. And Tia was like, I mean, that didn't sound nice, Wendy. And Wendy was like, I mean, you making it not sound nice. And then Tia cracked me up again. She said, maybe it's my accent. So she starts trying to do an American accent of it. They was laughing. I was laughing. But Gizelle then asked if there's going to be a Preakness situation. Like, are y'all going to have an issue with Preakness? So Wendy then says, I mean, I don't think so. But I mean, if it is, it's going to be from Kay. But Gizelle then asked if Angel is good with Kay. Because we all know what happened at the last time. So Angel then says, Kay said that she didn't say that. I said, so she reneged again. She said it, then she said she didn't say it, and then she said she said it, and now she says she didn't say it. She gonna later say she did say it again. I'm like, hey, this is not a good look. But Angel says that, and they're like, even after the event, she still said that she didn't say it. Angel says yes. I said, she just a liar. But Gizelle then says, like, she doubled back on it. Gizelle is shook because she said it, and Gizelle knows she said it. But Angel then says Kay said that she looked back on it and she didn't say it. And if she did say it, it'd be a real problem because she would never use that type of language in reference to her friend. This is Angel talking about how she would feel about Kay. Like if Kay actually said that, it'd be a real problem. Remember that. That's exactly what she stated. But Gizelle then says, yeah, she did say it. Like she literally said it and she did say it. But Gizelle then says like enough with the foolishness because y'all be saying all this shit. I don't even have to make the shit up no more. But Angel then says that her and Kay have pretty much talked about it privately. She believed her because that's her friend of so many years. Angel then says that it's kind of crazy that Kay would even use that phrase considering what happened to her. As y'all remember a couple years ago when Kay first got on the show, her and was it Deborah? That fight where she got hit in the head with a bottle, if I'm remembering correctly. But Wendy was like, you mean that one when she got hit in the head? Tia's like, what? I said, Tia, you didn't watch. I guess Tia didn't watch. But Angel was like, yes, that. Giselle says next time we are together, that should be the first conversation that's being had. And it was. So we then moved to Kay's Preakness brunch. Greg is there. And it's at Kay's condo. I felt like it shouldn't have been at Kay's condo. To me, it looked like very crowded in there. Honestly. I'm like, you couldn't have had this at an event. You couldn't have rented something out. But she's happy that he's there. She claimed that he wanted to support her. I feel like he's saving face. But she was like, she essentially has to understand that his support doesn't have to look exactly like hers, but she just has to know what his intentions are. I'm like, okay, whatever floats your boat. Kay's beautiful mama is there. And Kay then says that her and her mom will have to make amends, but eventually they'll be fine. We'll see. Stacey's the first to arrive. That was funny to me. Kay was like, even though Stacey is 5'3", no, she said, even though I'm 5'3" and Stacey's 6 foot, I'm gonna be the bigger person inviting Stacey over here. I said, how are you the bigger person when you the one with the issue? You the one that's been having this one-sided beef with Stacey. So she's the one that's the bigger person showing up to an event with somebody who has a one-sided issue with them. Like, if I know you got animosity towards me, I'm not coming towards you. Like, I'm not coming to anything you got going on. But Stacey's talking to Greg, and she asked if he and Kay are still, like, are y'all together? And he was like, yes, I mean, but we're just back and forth between places. So Stacey tells us she's trying to follow their living situation. She's like, I mean, I thought it was common knowledge that they weren't together. So why the fuck is he here? Stacey is so funny. But she did ask Greg if he's living here with Kay. And he's like, no, but this is Kay's, but I'm here all the time. But Ashley and Gizelle, they arrive. Kay's wondering what the hell Gizelle got on because Gizelle look like Gizelle. She do. But Gizelle then says, there's something that I want to discuss. She then brings up them going to the Caribbean. But Stacey was like, are we going to be roommates again? Gizelle says, no, we're not. We're not. But Stacey, she's surprised that she's even invited. I mean, obviously she would be surprised. But Gizelle, she's ready to eat. Tia arrives. Kay's mom and Greg, they outside talking. You can tell her mama's trying to force a conversation. But Wendy, she arrives next. And Wendy look good. Wendy look good. That fraud, alleged insurance fraud money, she put it to good use because she looked good. Like, Wendy looked the best out of everybody there. But Kay and the girls, they're seated. Angel comes in last, and they're all now sitting down, eating and stuff. They're greeting each other. And Gizelle gets in her confessionals talking about Angel's titties. I'm like, Gizelle. But Gizelle then asked how they ended up here. Like, Wendy, your event, like, it's your event. Why are we here and not at your event first? I'm like, you just being messy. But Kay then says, I mean, you know, there's a lot of first, better, best when it comes to Wendy, aka like she got to be the first one to do it. She got to be the best. She got to be she got to be the best to do everything. So Stacey says, what does that mean? Kay says, you know, Wendy likes to be the first, best, and better. Wendy says, I mean, this constant desire to have an issue with me, it's awkward. It's kind of weird. Like, there wasn't even a problem. Stacey then asks Kay, like, how is Wendy being competitive in this moment? Wendy's like, thank you, Stacey. Like, she's eating up the fact that Stacey's on the same page with her. But Kay says, I mean, we're just going to enjoy this moment. We're enjoying this moment. She's trying to, like, block it out. So Wendy then says, I mean, you got all these rehearsal lines that you're trying to say. Kay says, you come in here with your professor attitude. Wendy says, I mean, you keep speaking on my profession because it bothers you and you're insecure about yours. I say, could be true. Tia starts talking about how Kay's mom is, because Kay's mom is lurking now. She was outside with Greg, but she inside now because she can probably sense that her daughter is about to be in the hot seat. But she's like, her mama's making her presence known. Like, if the shit get left, we're going to get left with it. And you can already tell her mama don't play that shit. So Gizelle then brings up Angel, telling her that Kay essentially reneged on that chin check comment, which would make me, talking about Gizelle, a liar, and I'm not a liar. Giselle's not lying about it. So Angel then says, I mean, I'm not calling you one. I've known Kay for a long time and didn't believe, and I would choose to believe that she wouldn't use those words in reference to me because it's overly aggressive to me. She did use those words, though. Just because she's your friend don't mean that she couldn't say that. But I understand why she wants to believe Kay. But honestly, I would be trying to hear out everything. But Kay then says, like, you took offense to it. She asked her, like, you took offense to it? Angel says, yes, deeply. Kay says, I understand. Received. I said, so you admitting to it again that you actually said it? Stacey says, so that means punch you in the chin when it's coming like the chin check shit. And Angel's like, yeah. Kay says, so just so we're clear, I said it. I said, so you said it, then you didn't say it, then you said it, then you said you didn't, and now you finally stating that you said it. So are we finally done with stating that you didn't say it? Because you did say it. So she says, I apologize for offending you. Angel says, okay, with us, I apologize if you feel like I didn't have your back. I always have your back. I said, I'm sorry, what? Wendy and Gizelle was me. Wendy says this energy that you had in the store was different than the energy that you got right now. Gizelle says facts. Because Angel was in that store stating, if she did state that she said that she chin checked me, we gonna have an issue. So what is this? I ain't saying you got to go over there and actually chin check her, like literally chin check her, but hold her accountable. Like, if you say that it's an issue and you don't play that shit, check her. Check her. What you mean you chin check me? We'll get to it though. But Wendy, Gizelle, and Tia, they're all in agreement. So they pretty much are like, yeah, like that's the energy that you had. So Wendy then brings up Angel talking about how Kay had experienced that hit that she had a couple seasons ago with the bottle. And Kay sitting there talking about something, oh wow. I said, what's the problem? What's the problem? Because you don't want to talk about you chin checked your friend, so she can't come back and say something else back about you. Like, so Angel then interjects, not Angel, Ashley, irrelevant. Y'all know I ain't said her name the whole time. Ashley interjects stating that we just want to know why you had that energy then. You weren't even there. So what are you talking about, Ashley? Always looking at Ashley. This is why I don't like Ashley. You were not even there for the conversation that they're talking about in that shop. The only people that knew the energy that Angel had was Angel, Gizelle, Tia, and Wendy. So why are you talking, Ashley? Sit back and just be quiet. You always want to get involved in some shit. But Wendy then says, like, your demeanor is different. And it was different there. So Angel then says, because I was hurt. Wendy says to us, like, it's almost as if Kay did, in fact, chin shake you and pretty much told you better not come to me. Pretty much, Whitney's, not Whitney. Why am I getting all the Salt Lake City names in the Wendy pretty much is like, it seems like you and Kay already had a conversation to come here and be like, don't you sit here and say that you chin check me, because if you do, it's gonna be a problem. So Kay says, Angel, I mean, you have a right to feel how you feel as your friend. I do want to give you that, because I know that this can get heightened. I know how this can get in this environment. But whatever that chat y'all had was, I hope that's the last. I said, somebody definitely just got chin check. I said, the chin check. I said, that was a chin check. The conversation they showed us of the initial chin check didn't seem like a chin check to me. That was it. She basically told her, that conversation you had with them about me better be the last time you do it. I said, the audacity of you to state that when you the one that was talking about chin checking somebody. But Angel then says, let me address the other bit of energy. And it was funny because Gizelle and Wendy was like, oh yeah, that was a chin check. But Angel then says, let me address the other bit about the energy. She then says, it's been 2 days. Like, I had the energy with y'all, but like I slept on it. Which, I mean, that can be true. But me personally, if I don't like you disrespecting me in that way, and I felt like that was disrespectful, even if I sleep on it and don't have that rah-rah energy that I had with y'all when I was being told that it was said, I'm still going to check you about it. Like, you're not going to get away with stating that you chin checked me. So it's like you got punked in the moment. But Kay then says, speaking of energy, do you like this lady, pointing at Wendy? And Angel says, like, today I'm not feeling it. I'm like, why are you mad at Wendy? But Stacey then asks why you don't like Wendy, like me. Why don't you like Wendy? Wendy was like, yeah, why? Angel says, I just don't like this conversation because you're basically calling me fake by stating that the other day I had this energy. I'm like, it's true. Wendy's not lying. And not only that, your anger and I don't want to say anger, but your dislike is misplaced. Like, you should be mad at your friend Kay. Wendy is just bringing up the shit that was said. But Kay then says that she pretty much states that is being, Kay says to Angel, that is being fake. And then the way she said it was hostile. I'm like, Angel, you're not picking up on this energy. But Stacey is sitting there sipping her mimosa, and you can tell she was enjoying it because it's not her finally in the hot seat. But Wendy then says, like, how did I call you fake? Like, the energy that you gave should be more so towards the people that co-sign. Like, you give me all that energy, but you really ain't giving it to Wendy, to Gizelle and Tia too. Like, you mad at just me for stating the same shit that everybody else is agreeing with. So Angel then says, I mean, they didn't say what you said. Gizelle says, I agree with what Wendy said. Basically, like, give me that energy too. But Wendy then states she don't know why Angel's energy essentially is misplaced. I don't understand it either. But Angel then says, let's use emotional intelligence. You find out things that hurt you. You respond one way. When you sleep on it, your energy changes. That can be true. But Wendy then says, like, the energy shift towards me is weird. Like, it's kind of crazy. Like, wow. Angel says, well, wow to you too, Wendy. I'm like, why are you upset with Wendy? I don't get that. But Gizelle then gets says get it all out now because we're about to go see the First Lady of Maryland. Greg comes in there, gives Kay some money for camera time, but they head on out and they get on the Sprinter. So as they're on the Sprinter, they're toasting or whatever, and Gizelle says she's gonna do a toast to Angel because she looked upset. Angel says, I wasn't upset, I was mad. Stacey says, oh. Angel says, but I'm fine and I appreciate the toast. Gizelle then says, so you were mad at Wendy? And she was like, yes, but generally I was mad. I'm like, what are you mad at Wendy for? But Angel then tells us that she feels misunderstood and she knows who she is and she's not here to validate anybody else's opinions or give anybody else any validation. So Kay then says that she gets the frustration like coming into the group, trying to build friendships with people. You have those moments where it's just not completely comfortable. It can be overwhelming. And she then says, I speak aggressively and I speak honestly. I said, honestly? You've already proven this season so far that you ain't too honest. You done lied about that chin check a couple times. But she then states that, Wendy, when I was speaking on you, I didn't come to the ladies like on some type shit. Stacey said, but that's how you came at me. So Kay says, I mean, you're a different story. I was excited to see you when you came around the group. I told everybody that it was great when you first came. Stacey says, I mean, it's funny that you were stating that you were interested in getting to know me, but when you was having all these events, you didn't invite me anywhere. I said, clock it. So Kay then says, I mean, you just weren't on my list. It's not that deep. I don't care. I said, now, if Wendy would have said this, what's the difference? So Stacey brought up an issue that she had where she felt like you were kind of shafting her. Doesn't that align with what you just stated your issue is with Wendy? Like how Wendy is showing up to events and whatnot and not giving you the energy and the attention that you want. Yet you claim that she's trying to get to know Stacey, but you don't care about how she feels about not getting invited to events. I'm like, Kay, you're not looking too good this season. But Stacey then she was like, look at her energy. Look at her energy. Like, what is that? It sounds like a personal problem, which it does. But Kay almost spills her drink on herself. And she asks for a napkin. And she's sitting across from Angel. And Wendy's back here pretty much, like, where I'm at is where Wendy's at. Where this bottle is at is where Stacey's at. And where my AirPods is where Kay is. So the napkin is right here. Like, she can grab that napkin, or she can, well, I don't think the napkin was there, but if there was one, it was there. But the whole point of Wendy, pretty much about the state, if you got a cotton dress on, you can kind of wipe that shit off of her dress. If that's your friend talking about Angel, use the bottom of your dress. If I was sitting here, I'd have done it. Angel says, I mean, why don't you try it? Wendy was like, I mean, that's your friend of 20 years. Why don't you do it? Like, I'm right there with Wendy, though. But Kay says, mind your business. Gizelle is sitting there laughing because she's like, what the fuck is about to go down? But Kay says, fuck off, Wendy. Fuck off, Wendy. And Stacey's like, I mean, I don't speak like that. And Kay is like, well, you don't have your QVC voice on. You don't have your QVC voice on. And she was like, I'm tired of these hoes, especially this one, talking about Stacey. Stacey says, oh, so now I'm a hoe. And Angel's like, that's a colloquialism. Y'all know what I'm trying to say. Then Kay then says it too. But Stacey says, I don't want to get chin checked. I see. Stacey cracks me up. She got her right there. And Kay says, I mean, you got it already. Stacey says, I'm sure you're the one that would show me. I said, Stacey is good TV, boy. She is good TV. But here go Ashley. Talking about, let's not do this right now. That's a traumatic thing. Talking about bringing up the whole chin check with the whole bottle situation with Kay. Talking about Stacey's taking it too far, bringing something like that up. It makes me want to chin check her. I said, yet you the one that brought the shit up with Kay last season. Did you forget how you kept bringing the shit up, knowing that Kay was traumatized by it? Please, Ashley. But next week we got Kay, which seems like Kay versus Jazzy, the cast trip, and then Ashley's bringing up Chris and Chris Samuels and Stacey. Y'all let me know what y'all think down below in the comments. If you haven't already, hype the video, thumbs up the video, and subscribe if you're new. And I will see y'all next week. Peace.